So let's imagine a vast, vast ocean, vast, vast ocean of water. It's calm, it's serene, it's deep, deep blue, peaceful. This can symbolize the self, bliss, happiness, serenity, your very being, your very essence. This is just the way the self always is. We can symbolize ignorance as a rising up of a wave, a rising up of water, claiming itself to be an independent, separate entity. This is the arising of the belief, I am the body-mind. This belief, I'm the body-mind, is ignorance. And only when the I am the body-mind concept, what Ramana calls the I thought, what I think is maybe a slightly better translation of the I concept. The idea I'm the body-mind rises up in this ocean of the self, from the ocean of the self, and takes itself to be separate. That is ignorance. That is the start of samsara, of the cycle of birth and death, of suffering. Now, if that wave then engages in practice, it just splashes everything, splashes everywhere, perpetuates itself. What you really are is the ocean. So the point of who am I is like, what am I? Am I this wave? Or is this wave, is this belief fictitious? The point of self-inquiry is for this wave to collapse back down into the ocean. This is sometimes spoken of as the mind turns inwards and goes back into the source from where it came. The water rising is that mind. You turn back, you're back to where you came from. Remember, that's not a racist slogan. Go back to where you came from. I think I told you about that story where someone traveled to Ramana ashram, desperate, suffering, seeking advice from Ramana. And Ramana told him to go back from where he came. And at first he took it that literally. He thought Ramana was sending him back home again. And he was angry and confused. And then Ramana's devotees explained to him the inner meaning of this teaching. Go back to where you came. What is the source of the ego? What is the source of the I thought? So when we relax and be still, the I thought subsides. The beingness is there. But if unchecked, the I thought will rise again, habitually, out of habit. So the point of the practice is to realize this mechanism, to see it for what it is. And not for the wave, not for the I thought to do the practice, although that's how it may start off. But to come into contact with that, to knowingly come into contact with that which you are. The knowledge that I am not the body-mind destroys ignorance, which is, ignorance is the knowledge or belief, the so-called knowledge, the pretend knowledge. I am the body-mind. That is what ignorance is. It's not real knowledge. It's a false knowledge. The mind thinks it knows, but it's what it thinks it knows is actually a lie. So this is ignorance rising up, taking itself to be a separate entity. And when that sinks down and becomes the ocean, there is just being. This is the true knowledge. It's the being without the false knowledge. It's just the serene ocean. Contrast that to an intellectual understanding. How could we use this same analogy of the ocean and the rising up of the I as a wave of water, a peak of water rising up from the ocean? How can we illustrate in this analogy intellectual understanding as opposed to genuine realization? Well, what we can say is that an intellectual understanding is that I rises up and says, I am the body-mind. And then this body-mind thinks, I am the ocean. So now you've got a wave, which itself is a belief. The wave symbolizes the belief, I'm the body-mind, rising up. And then that mind then believes, I am the self. Or that wave then believes, I am not the body-mind. What happens? Has the wave subsided? No. Now the wave is intact and it has a belief, a non-dual belief system. The words, if you listen to that wave speak, it would sound the same, the same words, but the feeling's different, the sense is different. So this is about the wave coming down, not about the wave having a new belief system. When the teachings first go in, it goes into the wave. The mind takes on the teachings, the wave is intact, the I'm the body-mind idea is still intact, and the ego is taking the teachings. And then when the ego practices the teachings, it turns back in on itself. This wave turns back in on itself and goes in. What happens? It disappears. It merges with self. You read these traditional texts, they say merge everything into the self. It merges back in. And then the true knowledge appears, not the intellectual knowledge or for the ego, the true knowledge, which is not knowledge. It's not in the mind. When I say it's not knowledge, I mean the word knowledge usually means thinking, concepts in the mind. I know my name. I know my date of birth. I know how old I am. I know the capital city of France. I know how tall Mount Everest is. These are all thoughts, concepts, ideas, memory in the mind. Spiritual knowledge is not that kind of knowledge in the mind. Ramana says, true jnana, true knowledge is just being. You know the self, not by knowing the self, but by being the self. Being the self means no ignorance rising up. It means the mind turns in and you become one with the self that you always were. If you're rising up as an I, you say we don't need to do anything, everything is okay as it is, which is true as well, then that ego entity may remain intact. The I thought just continues out of habit and suffers. This is why we must turn within. In Yoga Vashista, that traditional text, it says when the mind goes outwards towards objects, it's known as the mind. And when it turns it within and attends to the subjects, it becomes the self. Ramana said the same. The mind going outwards is called the mind, meaning that, in this sense, meaning the ego, meaning ignorance. And turn within, the self. So we say the teachings are within you because when you go within, you come back to what you are. But if you're unsure, what does within mean? Do I need to turn within? Remember what I always say when you're confused, if you're not sure, just be still. Summa ira, be still. Oh, I'm not sure what to do. I'm not sure what to do. Be still. Be still. What about this? What about that? Be still. Be still. Be still. But didn't you say you have to do it this way? Or didn't someone else say you have to do it that way? Be still. Be still. But, what about this? What about that? When you finally get rest, then it's like, oh, this is what I've been looking for. This is what I've been looking for. Duality, non-duality, self, free will, no free will. The world is real. The world is illusion. That's all mind stuff. That's only useful if it helps you subside into the self. If it's confusing you and making you rise up as a me, as I, as ego, then that's not a useful teaching for you. If the teaching is helpful, if you say, okay, it's illusion, and then you're letting go of everything, you come back into self, then that teaching is helpful for you. This is why when Ramana was asked, which teacher do I believe? How do I find my guru? How do I know who my guru is? Ramana said, the one that gives you peace, that's the guru. That's how you to know your guru, the one who gives you peace. Not the one who puts you on the treadmill, on the hamster wheel. Hamster wheel, going round and round in circles. Not that one. I do hope you appreciate my little actions every now and again. See? So once you get a sense of these teachings, then the scriptures support your own sense, your own inner knowing, non